Good morning. The first item of business is general questions. At question number 1, I call Colin Beattie.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on the progress of the A720 Sheriff Hall roundabout project.
Cabinet Secretary Fiona Hislop.
We continue to progress the proposed improvements at Sheriff Hall through the statutory process. Given the large number of objections received following publication of draft orders, a public local inquiry was held from the 31st of January to the 8th of February 2023. The independent reporter's conclusions and recommendations have been submitted to the Scottish Government and are under active consideration prior to advice being provided to and a decision being made by Scottish ministers on whether to complete the statutory process.
Colin Beattie.
It's coming up to almost 2 years since the independent reporter submitted her conclusions to ministers. Can the Cabinet Secretary confirm if the money allocated previously is still ring-fenced and, given cost inflation, if it is still adequate to meet the construction costs?
Cabinet Secretary.
So I would like to assure the member that this Government remains committed to the Edinburgh and South East Scotland City region deal, which includes up to £120 million for the grade separation of Sheriff Hall roundabout. The financial risk for any cost over and above this figure lies with Scottish ministers. And as with all other road infrastructure projects, the cost estimate will be updated subject to completing the statutory process and in advance of procurement. Funding to progress the construction stage will be determined as part of the annual Scottish budget setting exercises.
Miles Briggs.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. This week I launched a campaign so that people across Lothian can make their voice heard about this notorious junction. After 20 years of discussion and more than £6 million spent on consultation fees, we are no further forward. Motorists across Lothian have had enough of the delays. So can I ask the Cabinet Secretary, can she confirm today that this project will be given the green light before the election?
Cabinet Secretary.
So, while we are keen to see the improvements delivered as soon as possible, the statutory right for individuals to have their say on proposals can't be set aside, and I'm sure for a number of projects the Conservatives would want to see the statutory process concluded. As at this point, I have yet to receive that advice, but obviously the timetable for decision-making and any budget process can be made thereafter.
Christine Graham.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. And I'm not surprised Miles Briggs has launched a campaign. I'd probably have done it myself, because constituents in the Borders and Midlothian have to use that junction all the time. I use it. It connects to the A68 and the A7 in my constituency. And could I just say to the Cabinet Secretary, I do add my concerns to the delay in this project going ahead, because it can only get more and more costly with more and more delay.
Cabinet Secretary.
So I acknowledge the concerns raised by the member and indeed by other members. The proposed new flyover arrangement at Sheriff Hall would separate local traffic, including public transport, from strategic traffic on the bypass. It would improve traffic flow in the bypass at this location, improving road safety, journey times for users. In addition, the proposed new active travel facilities would provide cyclists and pedestrians with their own safer, dedicated alternative routes, removing the existing barrier and transforming the way across the A70 Edinburgh City bypass. But there were 2,773 objections, and the advice will be coming to me once the analysis is complete on receipt. And obviously we have received the reporter's view and recommendations. I have yet to receive that. When I receive that, I will deal with it.
Question number 2, Jeremy Balfour.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government, in relation to Part 5 of a House in Scotland bill, when the homelessness prevention pilots will commence?
Minister Paul McLennan.
The procurement exercise to appoint a grant fund manager for the homelessness prevention pilots is underway. The contract is due to be awarded on by the 1st of July 2025, and we expect the fund to open for bids shortly after that. Relevant bodies and their consortia partners who wish to participate in prevention pilots will be encouraged to apply.
Jeremy Balfour.
Can I thank the Minister for his answer, but the Parliament is now going to be asked to pass a bill including provisions that were meant to be informed by these pilots. It now seems that we will not have started by the time the Housing Bill comes to stage 3 in this chamber. Does the Minister not accept that this represents a failure of planning on the part of the Scottish Government? And what value does he think they will provide, given we will conclude far too late for MSPs to change anything in the bill?
Absolutely. Minister.
I don't share the view of Mr Balfour. First of all, I think it's important to remember this is a £4 million investment by the Scottish Government on this particular point. The pilots are very important for the success of the duty, so we'd rather take our time and get it right. We've worked very closely, as has he, with Crisis on this particular point and other stakeholders. And I think that's really important about how we shape the development of the pilots and the expected outcomes. Obviously, they will be learning throughout the state of the pilots, and we'll continue to do that as we develop the bill also.
Question number 3, Jackie Dunbar.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on any engagement it has had with the UK Government regarding the impact of the increase to employer national insurance contributions on the third sector in Scotland.
Cabinet Secretary Shona Robson.
This Government has consistently made the case to the UK Government to fully fund the additional cost to public services of its increase in employer national insurance contributions. This includes the vital services provided by third sector organisations. The Scottish Council for Voluntary Organisations has highlighted that this will cost the voluntary sector in Scotland around £75 million and puts these organisations in a very challenging situation.
Jackie Dunbar.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. A local charity has told me that Labour's short-sighted hike to employer national insurance contributions will cost them alone a staggering £450,000. That's funding that could be supporting vital local services. Does the Cabinet Secretary share my concern about the impact of Labour's tax hike on the voluntary sector in Scotland, and does she agree that the UK Government should reverse it as a matter of priority?
Cabinet Secretary.
Yes, I do agree with that. I'm deeply concerned about the impact of the increase on charities and other third sector organisations, and as I said, I've made this clear to the UK Government on several occasions. Last month, the UK Government confirmed that we would receive £339 million this year for the additional costs, which is less than half the estimated cost to public services of more than £700 million. It's unacceptable that the Chancellor has failed to protect these organisations from the costs of this reserved tax rise. And of course, this Parliament voted back in February to call on the UK Government to reverse this tax hike, and the Chancellor must listen and take action.
Question number 4, Faisal Chowdhury.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on how it is working to reduce the average time families spend in temporary accommodation.
Minister Paul McLennan.
Increasing affordable housing supply is the best way to reduce time in temporary accommodation. We've provided £80 million through our Voids and Acquisitions Fund last year and this year to increase the supply of social and affordable homes. 80% of this funding has been targeted to the 5 local authorities facing the most sustained temporary accommodation pressures. An estimated 2,669 households with children have been helped into affordable housing in the year to end December 2024. The most recent statistics show that 20 councils have reduced the number of children in temporary accommodation.
Faisal Chowdhury.
I thank the Minister for the answer. Constituents frequently contact me about waits with children in unsuitable temporary accommodation lasting years. And we are now seeing a concerning rise in the number of children housed in hostels and B&Bs. Given the SNP members voted down amendments from my colleague Mark Griffin to consider the United Nations right of the child when allocating temporary accommodation, how can the Scottish Government say they are serious about ending the housing emergency and stopping the unacceptable increase of children in B&Bs?
Minister.
I think there's a number of points. First of all, I mentioned about £80 million funding this year and last year. That was £14 million in his own region last year and £14 million this year in Tarleton. That. We've also taken other actions in regards to that. We've got a target approach with 5 local authorities, including Edinburgh. Edinburgh has seen a 50% reduction in voids, and I thank them for their work on that particular point as well. We're working again with the local authority on that particular point. The housing bill, again, looking at prevention duties, I think is very important. We just had a question from Mr Balfour on that as well. And only last week, the Cabinet Secretary and I met with RSLs in Scotland to talk around about their role in taking that. So we are taking a number of actions to reduce that, and as I said, there are 20 local authorities that have reduced the number of children in temporary accommodation just in the last statistics.
Question number 5, Maggie Chapman.
Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to the recently published report by the Just Transition Commission, A Just Transition for Aberdeen and the North East.
Minister Alistair Allen.
Presiding Officer, we welcome this report from the Just Transition Commission. As I set out in my statement on Tuesday, we accept the headline recommendations in principle. Before doing further planning, we need first clarity on the UK Government's intentions in a range of key reserved areas, including the future regulatory and fiscal regimes for North Sea oil and gas, and support for the Acorn CCUS project. Aside from plans, this Government is taking action. We will continue to provide support to the region, including through the new £8.5 million round of the Just Transition Fund for the North East and Moray.
Maggie Chapman.
During Tuesday's ministerial statement on this issue, the Minister didn't mention communities or answer my question about community benefit and community participation in planning. Will he today say how communities can expect to benefit from the collective commons that are our renewables as we harness them for the future, and how communities will genuinely be involved in the planning that must happen with urgency?
Minister.
Well, communities clearly are important, and I attempted to touch on that issue in my statement. But I certainly, on the point that the member is making about community benefit, and I think she may be talking here about onshore developments, the Scottish Government is in touch with the UK Government because the issue of mandating community benefits is reserved to the UK, about the very issue of ensuring that communities are the mandatory recipients of benefits in future.
Question number 6 is not lodged. Question number 7, Rona Mackay.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on ScotRail driver recruitment and training programmes in light of previous service reductions attributed to staffing shortages.
Cabinet Secretary Fiona Hislop.
We have worked hard in Scotland to ensure employers are in a position to table and negotiate a fair and affordable settlement on pay, and I'm pleased that ASLA have accepted a multi-year pay offer for trained drivers, an offer which meets inflation and gives drivers and their families security for the next 2 years. ScotRail is taking steps to eradicate its reliance on rest day and overtime working, which is all too common in the rail industry, and with 160 drivers recruited per year, its recruitment is at record levels and higher than any other operator in Britain. Of course, these highly skilled jobs require a carefully delivered training programme before recruited candidates can perform safely in their roles. The number of trainee drivers is limited by ScotRail's ability to safely deliver practical handling experience at any one time without disrupting service provision. With efforts made with the recruitment and training, ScotRail expects to see improvements in reliability from autumn this year.
Rona Mackay.
I thank the Minister for that answer. Last summer, ScotRail removed Bishop Briggs and Lenzie from the Edinburgh service due to driver shortages, a change that significantly impacted commuters in my constituency. Can the Minister confirm whether driver numbers have now recovered sufficiently to prevent a repeat of such timetable reductions, and whether full service retention is planned for these stations?
Cabinet Secretary.
So the previous temporary timetable related to the historical issues of driver availability and was lifted in early October last year. ScotRail is working hard to address this historical issue inherited from the previous private sector franchisees by recruiting the drivers, as I've mentioned, to have full availability on all routes. Remember that last summer, industrial action restricted availability of drivers who chose, as is their right, not to work their rest day, and this also affected timetables. As I said, the process of training the drivers is a complex one, and ScotRail is also dealing with a significant staff attrition as drivers reach their retirement age. So ScotRail has a robust recruitment process in place, which will improve driver availability even further, including for stations in Lenzie and Bishop Briggs, and I recognise the member's interest in our constituency in specifying the routes that she did.
Question number 8, Sarah Boyack.
To ask the Scottish Government what support it is giving to local authorities to enable them to implement their local heat and energy efficiency strategies.
Minister Alistair Allen.
We are committed to supporting local authorities to deliver their LHEs and are continuously seeking their input on the process of doing so. The Scottish Government is providing £2.4 million per annum to local authorities to use their own discretion to support LHEs development and implementation. Zero Waste Scotland is also delivering capacity building to local authorities focused on LHEs implementation. We've also committed over £815,000 of grant funding to local authorities through our Heat Network Support Unit to take forward heat network opportunities.
Sarah Boyack.
Given the financial investment required, what additional support and advice financially will the Scottish Government give councils to enable them to develop not-for-profit heat networks, given their huge success in Denmark over decades? And will there be specific financial support for regional networks so that councils can maximise the benefits from heat and renewable generation?
Minister.
Well, as I mentioned, there is ongoing support from the Scottish Government in a number of these areas, but I think it's worth mentioning the commitment that the Scottish Government has to developing heat networks as a key part of the way that we decarbonise our country in future. We've, as I mentioned, funded Zero Waste Scotland to provide capacity building in support of local authorities. And I think it's also probably worth pointing out in Edinburgh, which I know will be of interest to the member, that, for instance, in Edinburgh, the City Council have recently utilised their funding to further refine the zones identified within their LEs and seek legal counsel on the most appropriate delivery model to bring them to market.
Martin Whitfield.
For Presiding Officer, and can I thank the Minister for the answers to those questions? One of the challenges with local heat and energy efficiency strategies is that they cross local authority areas. Can the Minister explain what support the Scottish Government is giving to local authorities across borders to work together for these local heat strategies, and how can that be advanced at a quicker pace than perhaps is happening at the moment?
Minister.
Well, the member is right to point to the fact that some of these issues do cross local authority boundaries, and we work with local authorities to ensure that that cooperation is there. We do know there is a particular enthusiasm around heat network development, and we do have information on grant funding allocated via the Heat Network Support Unit, which equates to over £815,000 to support the development of these wider citywide or town-wide or cross-local authority heat networks. I would very much encourage the member to contact the Scottish Government, indeed, if he requires anything about his local area. But that cooperation is certainly being promoted by the Scottish Government.
Thank you. That concludes general questions. There will now be a suspension until 12 noon.